everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a video on how to prepare your background paper for mixed media using gesso. I've had a couple of requests for this video. It's not going to be a very long video, and even though it might seem like an easy thing to do, and it isn't a hard thing to do, I think sometimes you need a visual in order to know how to approach something and give you some confidence to get started. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have some workers in my kitchen who are redoing the cabinets and drilling into the walls, and so I'm so sorry if there are construction noises, but I really wanted to get this video done for you as promised. In order to prepare your paper with gesso and get it ready for mixed media, you need three things. One of the things is paper. Now, you don't have to use this paper. This is what I use. I purchased this on Amazon, and unfortunately it's only available in a box of, I think, 500 sheets, and it's kind of expensive. I'm going to put the link in the description box in case you're interested. I use this 120-pound white cardstock. It comes in 18 by 12 inch sheets, and then I cut 6 inches off, and then I have some paper to use for lots of other purposes, and I use this paper quite a bit. And then I also have a 12 by 12 inch piece of paper, and that's what I'm going to be working with today. So you can also use 110-pound paper. And another suggestion that I have that I've never used, but I was just looking at it the other day, is the Vicky Bouton Foundations paper. That's 140-pound paper, so it's even thicker. But for me, I do so much mixed media. I make so many layouts that have mixed media backgrounds that I can't afford to spend that much for paper. And I also make a lot of mistakes, and I would hate to throw away a piece of paper if I paid that much for it. So I think that's fantastic paper. This works out better for me. But if you're just starting out, you might want to try out the Vicky Bouton paper because you only have to buy one pad, whereas this is a little bit of an investment. And of course, this isn't the only choice. You can shop around. This is the only 120-pound cardstock that I was able to find. And so I purchased a large amount of it, but I use it all the time. So that's enough about the paper. You're also going to need some gesso. I use Liquitex gesso, and you can see that gesso can be expensive in this large quantity. You don't need to buy this much. Again, I use a lot of it. I was luckily able to find it on sale, but you don't need to buy a bottle this big, and it does last for quite a while. I'm showing you this beautiful new bottle, but I have been using this bottle, which is a little bit more messy looking, for quite a while, and there's still a decent amount left of it. So it does go a pretty long way because we're not going to use too much of it. Okay, and you also need a paintbrush. So this is the paintbrush that I use. I have been using this for years. You can see that it's well loved. I believe this is an oil painting brush, and I probably used it for oil painting many years ago. And usually you don't want to switch between an oil paint and acrylic paint, but I haven't had any problems with it. It's a really long time since it's seen oil paint. But in any case, I think that this is probably approximately 1 inch wide, and so I think that you could also use a thicker brush if you wanted to. This is just what works for me. I'm going to get started cutting the paper into smaller pieces, or into 12 by 12 inch pieces. Here is my trimmer, and I usually cut it 2 or more pieces at a time. I'm just going to do 2 today. I'm going to make sure that they're lined up. And then I'm going to put the paper on the 6 inch mark. And then cut. So this is what we're using today. And then this I'll put aside. I keep that in a particular place because, as I said, I use that quite a bit. And then my next batch. And you might have a trimmer that can cut more pieces of paper at once. I don't want to end up with crooked paper, so I'm just doing a couple. Okay, so here is my 12 by 12 inch paper. I'm just going to demonstrate on one piece of paper, but I am going to gesso all of these papers today, and I'll have them all around my craft room drying so that I can have a nice stack of them. So I'm going to start with taking my gesso and pouring some in the center. And then I'm just going to spread it out. I start with horizontal strokes. That's something that happens to me all the time. There's dog hair in the air in my house. We have 3 dogs, and it's very hard to avoid a little bit of dog hair. Even though they don't come downstairs, there's still dog hair down here. Sorry if that's disgusting to some people. I know some people don't have pets, and I'm sure that seems kind of gross, but that's the reality of having pets. Okay, so I have the gesso spread out all across my paper, and I honestly think I might need a little bit more gesso because I'm not getting the edges. Maybe I'm good. Okay, no, I think that I just needed to spread it out a little bit more. I just want to make sure that I have a coat of gesso covering the whole paper. You don't want to have gaps in your gesso. It's not the end of the world, but it's not desirable. Okay, then I'm going to turn my paper, and then I'm going to go in the other direction. And I was asked if you could see the brush strokes. Somebody said, well, don't you see the brush strokes if you use a brush to apply it? And yes, you can see the brush strokes. I've never noticed them on my layouts. Like, I feel like they are not super noticeable. I'm sure there are other ways of applying the gesso. I have seen people use various tools, but this is what I use. This is what works for me. So I always make sure that I get all the way to the edge, especially the outer edge of all the sides. So that's it. I have not two coats, but I have brushed the gesso on in 2 different directions. I'm sure that I got all of the corners, and that's all that I need to do. I'm going to put this one aside. I'm going to grab the next sheet. I guess I'll just do one more. I know this isn't that exciting, but I think that it's helpful to see somebody do something, no matter how simple something is. When you're first starting, I think it's really important to have everything that you need to do demonstrated, because it's very easy for someone to say, just do this. But if you've never seen it done, it's hard to know what to do. So I use a little bit more gesso this time. Now, if you miss a spot and you don't have gesso on a spot on your paper and you put paint on top, you're going to see that it looks kind of funky. The paint will absorb right into the paper, and that can be fixed. You could just go back with a little bit of gesso, cover up that spot, and then continue with your mixed media. So it's not the end of the world, but it's something that, you know, you'd like to avoid if possible. So this one has a little bit of extra paint on it. So now I'm going to go in the other direction again, just to make sure that I have all of it evenly spread out. It looks a little bit uneven to me. And the other thing I want to point out is that I'm working on a glass tabletop, so it's very easy to clean it up. You might want to consider getting some kind of a glass mat or something that will be easy to clean up when you're done, because gesso is not so easy to clean up on other surfaces. Although, of course, you could use some paper that you plan on throwing away, or some cardboard from a box that you're going to get rid of, but just make sure that you protect your surface. And that's it. 2 sheets of paper already. Okay, so now I'm going to continue, and I'm going to put gesso on the rest of my papers. So now I have gessoed all of my paper, and they're all dry. They're ready to use as mixed media backgrounds. If they're a little bit warped, I will sometimes run them through my laminator just to flatten them out a little bit more. If you don't have a laminator, you could always put them under something heavy and that will flatten them out the same way. Just have to give it a little bit of time. Well, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it useful. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to leave a comment. I do get back to everyone who leaves a comment. Sometimes it takes me a little bit, but I do answer everyone. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.